Okay, recorded. And let's start now. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Long time no see, guys. So I want to make a video right now about the sexuality education. Okay. Okay. First, I want to tell you about what is sexual health education is. Okay. Sex education is the provision of information about bodily development, sex, sexuality, and relationships, along with skills building to help young people communicate about and make informed decisions regarding sex and their sexual health. Sex education should occur throughout students' grade levels, with information appropriate to students' development and cultural background. It should include information about puberty and reproduction, abs- abstinence, contraceptions and condoms, relationships, sexual violation prevention, body image, gender identity, and sexual orientation. And maybe I think many more about it. It should be taught by trained teachers. Yes, actually. And sex education should be informed by evidence of what works best to prevent unintended pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections. But it should also respect young people's right to complete and honest information. Sex education should treat sexual development as a normal, natural part of human development. And second, about building an evidence and rights-based approach to healthy decision making. Yes. As they grow up, young people face important decisions about relationships, sexuality, and sexual behavior. The decisions they make can impact their health and well being for the rest of their lives. Young people have the right to lead healthy lives, and society has the responsibility to prepare youth by providing them with comprehensive sexual health education that gives them the tools they need to make healthy decisions. But it's enough for our programs to include discussions of abstinence and contraceptions to help young people avoid unintended pregnancy or disease. Comprehensive sexual health education must do more. It must provide young people with honest, age-appropriate age-appropriate information and skills necessary to help them take personal responsibility for their health and overall well-being. Okay, and let's next. It's about why is sexual health education important is important to young people's health and well-being. Okay, comprehensive sexual health education covers a range of topics throughout the students' grade levels. Along with parental and community support, it can help young people. Okay, first is about avoid negative health consequence. Let's talk in the United States. Each year in the United States, about 70, 750,000 teens become pregnant, with up to 82% of those pregnancies being unintended. Young people aged around 15, around 15 and young people aged around 15 until 20 account for 200 for to 25% of all new HIV infections in the US and make up almost one half of the over 19 million new STD infections Americans acquire each year. For sex education teaches young people the skills they need to protect themselves. Okay, second, let's talk about it. Communicate about sexuality and sexual health. Throughout their lives, people communicate with parents, friends, and intimate partners about sexuality. Learning to freely discuss contraception and condoms, yeah, as well as activities they are not ready for, protects young people's health throughout their lives. Delay sexual initiation until they are ready. Comprehensive sexual health education teaches abstinence as the only 100% effective method of preventing HIV, STIs, and unintended pregnancy. And as a valid choice which everyone has the right to make. Dozens of sex education programs have been proven effective at helping young people delay sex or have sex less often. Okay, let's talk about the third. Understand healthy and unhealthy relationships. Maintaining a healthy relationship requires skills many young people are never taught, like positive communication, conflict management, and negotiating decisions around sexual activity. Lack of these skills can lead to unhealthy and even violent relationships among youth. 1 in 10 high school students has experienced physical violence from a dating partner in the past year. Sex education should include understanding and identifying healthy and unhealthy relationship patterns, effective ways to communicate relationship needs and manage conflict, and strategies to avoid or end an unhealthy relationship. Fourth, understand, value, and feel autonomy. 8% of high school students have been forced to have intercourse, while 1 in 10 students say they have committed sexual violence. Good sex education teaches young people what constitutes sexual violence, that sexual violence is wrong, and how to find if they have been assaulted. Okay, let's next the fifth. Yeah. Show dignity and respect for all people, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. The past few decades have seen huge steps toward equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. You can call it LGBT individuals. Yet LGBT youth still face discrimination and harassment. Among LGBT students, 82% have experienced harassment due to the sexual orientation and 38% have experienced physical harassment. Okay, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, the seventh. I'm sorry. This is the last of why sexual health education important to young people's health and well-being. Okay. Protect their academic success. Student sexual health can affect academic success. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or you can call it CDC, has found that students who don't engage in health risk behaviors receive higher grades than students who do engage in health risk behaviors. Health-related problems and unintended pregnancy can both contribute to absenteeism and dropout. Okay, switching. Next, what does the research say about effective sex education? First, about comprehensive sexual education works. Research has repeatedly found that sex education which provides accurate, complete, and developmentally appropriate information on human sexuality, including risk reduction strategies and contraception, helps young people take steps to protect their health, including delaying sex, using condoms or contraception, and being monogamous. A 2012 study that examined 66 comprehensive sexual risk reduction programs found them to be an effective public health strategy to reduce adolescent pregnancy, HIV, and STIs. Research from the National Survey of Family Growth assessed the impact of sexuality education on youth sexual risk taking for young people ages around 15 until 19 and found that teens who receive comprehensive sex education were 50% less likely to experience pregnancy than those who receive abstinence only until marriage programs. Even accounting for differences in household income and education, states which teach sex education and or HIV education that covers abstinence as well as contraception tend to have the lowest pregnancy rates. Okay, next what? National Sexuality Education Standards provide a roadmap. The National Sexuality Education Standards, developed by experts in the public health and sexuality education field and heavily influenced by the National Health Education Standards, provide guidance about the minimum essential content and skills needed to help students make informed decisions about sexual health. 15. The standards focus on 7 topics as the minimum essential content and skill for K-12 education. K-12 education, sorry. Anatomy and psychology, puberty and adolescent development, identity, pregnancy and reproduction, sexually transmitted diseases and HIV, healthy relationships and personal safety. Topics are presented using performance indicators, what students should learn by the end of grades 2, 5, 8, and 12. Schools which are developing comprehensive sexual health education programs should consult the National Sexuality Education Standards to provide students with the information and skills they need to develop into healthy adults. And next, about the evidence-based interventions are proven effective for schools serving communities at risk. Schools may wish to embed evidence-based interventions (ABIS), you can call it ABIS, in their sexual health education programs. Others may wish to provide ABIS as targeted interventions for groups of students at high risk. To do the latter, these programs should be provided in an after-school setting. Researchers have identified dozens of ABIS where participants showed statistically significant declines in teen pregnancy, HIV, or other STIs. Following are collections of ABIS targeting youth from a variety of backgrounds. First, science and success programs that work to prevent teen pregnancy, HIV, and sexually transmitted infections. Advocates for Youth 2012. Advocates for Youth undertook exhaustive reviews of existing programs that work to prevent teen pregnancy, HIV, and STIs, and compiled a list of programs that have been proven effective by rigorous evaluation. 36 effective programs were identified. 16 programs demonstrated a statistically significant delay in the timing of first sex. 21 programs show statistically significant declines in teen pregnancy, HIV, or other STIs. 16 programs helped sexually active youth to increase their use of condoms. And nine programs demonstrated success at increasing use of contraceptions other than condoms. Emerging Answers, the National Campaign to End Teen and Unplanned Pregnancy, 2007. Researcher Douglas Kirby examined studies of prevention programs which had a strong experimental design and used other appropriate analysis criteria. Two-thirds of the 48 comprehensive sex education programs studied had positive effects. 40% delay sexual initiation, reduced number of sexual partners, or increased condom or contraceptive use. 30% reduce the frequency of sex, including return the abstinence, and 60% reduce unprotected sex. The Office of Adolescent Health, the division of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, keeps a list of evidence-based interventions with ratings based on the rigor of program impact studies and strength of the evidence supporting the program model. 31 programs meet the OAH effectiveness criteria and that were found to be effective at preventing teen pregnancies or births, reducing sexually transmitted infection, or reducing rates of associated sexual risk behaviors defined by sexual activity, contraceptive use, or number of partners. And let's talk about what's wrong with abstinence only, and what's wrong with abstinence only until marriage programs. Okay. Many students receive abstinence only until marriage programs instead of or in addition to more comprehensive programs. These programs are first, the peak abstinence the peak abstinence until heterosexual marriage as the only moral choice for young people. Second, mention contraception only in terms of failure rates. Failure rates. And third, focus on heterosexual youth, ignoring the needs of LGBTQ youth. Often use outdated gender roles, urging modesty for all girls while painting all boys as sexual aggressors. And fifth, have been found to contain false information, and six, are not supported by the majority of Americans. So, so we're talking about the Americans. I'm sorry, that's not the based on Indonesian news. Yeah. Okay. Let's next. Only one abstinence-only program has ever been proven effective at helping young people delay sex. Yet in withholding information about contraception, it leaves those who do have sex completely at risk. Studies show that 99% of people will use contraception in their lifetimes, and that the provision of information about contraception does not hasten the onset of sexual debut or increase sexual activity. Meanwhile, 30 years of public health research clearly demonstrate that comprehensive sex education can help young people delay sexual initiation while also assisting them to use protection when they do become sexually active. We want young people to behave responsibly when it comes to decisions about sexual health, and that means society has the responsibility to provide them with honest, age-appropriate, comprehensive sexual education, comprehensive sexual health education, access to services to prevent pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections, and the resources to help them lead healthy lives. All young people need comprehensive sexual health education, while others also need sexual health services. Youth at disproportionate risk for sexual health disparities may also need targeted interventions designed specifically to build self-efficacy and agency. Further, administrators and other policymakers must recognize that structural determinants, socio-cultural factors, and cultural norms have been shown to have a strong impact on youth sexual health and must be tackled to truly redress sexual health disparity fueled by social inequality. And next, let's talk about how is the content of a student's sex education decided. Manufacturers help shape the content of a student's sex education. Manufacturer help shape the content of a student's sex education. It include first, state and federal funding the school district receives, and second, state laws and standards regarding sex education. Third, school district level policies and or standards regarding curricula and content. Fourth, the program or curriculum a district or individual school selects. And fifth, the individuals who delivers the program. With thousands of school districts around the nation, students' experiences can vary drastically from district to district and school to school. And next, let's talk about what are federal, state, and local structures that affect sex education. In the United States, education is largely state and local responsibility as dictated by the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. This amendment states that the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to states are reserved to states respectively to the or to the people. Because the Constitution doesn't specifically mention education, the federal government does not have any direct authority regarding curriculum. Regarding curriculum instruction, administration, personnel, etc., and many more. I'm sorry, not etc. In 1980, the U.S. Department of Education was created. While this move centralized federal efforts and responsibilities into one office, it didn't come with an increase in federal jurisdiction over the educational system. The U.S. Department of Education currently has no authority over sexual health education. However, there have been federal funds allocated primarily through the Department of Health and Human Services that school systems and community-based agencies have used throughout the last 3 decades to provide various forms of sex education. Okay, first about the federal funding. Until FY 2010, there was no designated funding for a comprehensive approach to sex education. In 1982, federal support of abstinence-only programs began, and in 1996 expanded drastically. From 1996 to 2010, over $1.5 billion in federal funding went to abstinence-only programs, which were conducted with little oversight and were proven ineffective. While one large stream of funding for abstinence-only programs was cancelled in 2010, a publication one still exists as authorized by Congress to Title V funding, as it and is funded at $50 million per year. Wow, that's so crazy, man. In 2010, 2 streams of funding became available for evidence-based sex education interventions. First, let's talk about PREP, the Personal Responsibility Education Program, and you call it PREP, was authorized by Congress as a part of the Affordable Care Act of 2010. PREP provides grants like $75 million over 5 years for programs which teach about both abstinence and contraception in order to help young people reduce their risk for unintended pregnancy, HIV, and STIs. In fiscal year 2012, 45 states applied for PREP. PREP grants are issued to states, typically the state health departments. All programs implemented with PREP funding are to educate adolescents about both abstinence and contraception for the prevention of pregnancy and STIs, including HIV or AIDS, HIV or AIDS, and must cover at least 3 adulthood preparation subjects such as healthy relationships, adolescent development, financial literacy, educational and career success, and healthy life skills. Second, about the President's Teen Pregnancy Prevention Initiative, or TPPI. TPPI funds medically accurate and age-appropriate programs to reduce teen pregnancy. 75 grantees in 32 states received TPPI funds in FY 2012. TPPI grants are distributed by the Office of Adolescent Health to local public and private entities. Grantees must implement an evidence-based program which has been proven effective in preventing teen pregnancy. According to OAH, 31 programs meet this criteria, including one abstinence-only until marriage program. And third, about states may accept PREP or TPPI or Title V funds. Many states accept funds for both abstinence-only programs and evidence-based intervention. In 2013, 19 CAS and 17 LEA received 5-year cooperative agreements from CDC or DASH to implement ASHE within their school systems. In addition, in 2013, CDC or Division of School Health issued a request for proposal to fund state education agencies or CEAS and large municipal education agencies LEAS to implement exemplary sexual health education ASHE. ASHE is defined as a systematic, evidence-informed approach to sexual health education that includes the use of grade-specific, evidence-based interventions, but also emphasize sequential learning across elementary, middle, and high school grade levels. States may accept PREP, TPPI, or Title V funds. Many states accept funds for both abstinence-only programs and evidence-based interventions. In 2013, 19 CEAS and 17 LEAS received 5-year cooperative agreements from CDC or DASH to implement ESHE within their school systems. I'm sorry, I have many mistakes, dude. First, the Real Education for Healthy Youth Act. While there is as yet not law that supports comprehensive sexual health education, there is pending legislation. The Real Education for Healthy Youth Act, introduced in February 2013 by the late Senator Frank Laudenberg, or DNG, and Representative Barbara Lee, DCA, will ensure that federal funding is allocated to comprehensive sexual health education. DCA will ensure the federal funding is allocated to comprehensive sexual health education programs that provide young people with the skills and information they need to make informed, responsible, and healthy decisions. This legislation sets forth a vision for comprehensive sexual health education programs in the United States. Second, about the state policy. State sex education policy may be governed by a state law as passed by the state legislature and signed signed into law by the state's governor and or the State Department of Education may have established state sex education standards. State policy on sex education can vary widely. As of 2012, 30 states 30 states have no law that governs sex education, and schools are not required to provide it. 2005 states mandate that sex education, if taught, must include abstinence but don't require it to include contraception. And 6 states mandate that sex education include either a ban or discussing homosexuality or material about homosexuality that's overtly discriminatory. Each state has a Department of Education headed by a Chief State School Officer, more commonly known as the Superintendent of Public Instruction of the Commissioner of Education. Titles vary by state. State Departments of Education are generally responsible for disbursing state and federal funds to local school districts, setting parameters for the length of school day and year, teacher certification, testing requirements, graduation requirements, developing learning standards, and promoting professional development. Generally, the chief state school officer is appointed by the governor. In a few states, they are elected. State departments of education may also have standards which provide benchmark measures that define what students should know and be able to do at specified grade levels. These sometimes, but not always, address sexual health education. For instance, Connecticut and New Jersey have standards similar to national sexuality education standards in place and which address reproduction, prevention of STIs and pregnancy, and also healthy relationships. A number of other states have general health education standards which do not directly address sexual health, while others make mention of HIV, of STI prevention and abstinence but don't demand the most true instruction in sexual health. And local policy at the school district level, pre-K-12 public schools are generally governed by local school boards, with the exception of Hawaii, which does not have any local school board system. Local school boards are typically comprised of 5 to 7 members who are either elected by the public or appointed by other government officials. Local school boards are responsible for ensuring that each school in district is in compliance with the laws and policies set by the state and federal government. Local school boards also have broad decision and rule-making authority with regards to the operations of their local school district, including determining the school district budget and priorities, uh, like curriculum decisions such as the scope and sequence of classroom content in all subject areas. and textbook approval authority. Typically, school boards set the sex education policy for a school district. They must follow state law. Some school boards provide guidelines or standards, while others select specific curricula for schools to deliver. Most school boards are advised by School Health Advisory Councils (SHACS). SHAC members are individuals who represent the community and who provide advice about health education. And let's talk about next about how can I work for comprehensive sexual health education for students in my community. There are a number of ways to help ensure that students get the information they need to live healthy lives, build healthy relationships, and take personal responsibility for their health and well-being. First, urge your members of Congress to support the real education for health youth act in person by phone or online. Second, contact your school board and urge them to adopt the national sexuality education standards and require comprehensive sexual health programs. Third, join a school health advisory council in your area. Both young people and adults are eligible to serve on MOS. And fourth, organize within your community a group of individuals or a coalition of like-minded organizations to do one or all of the above. And let's talk about sex topics parents should be sure to cover. First, tell your kids exactly how their bodies will change as they mature. I know it's difficult, but that means covering topics like erections, wet dreams, puberty, and menstruation. Ask your friends if they were prepared for puberty, and you will see why it's important to prepare your kids for what's going to happen with their bodies before their first pubic hair, which means before 9 years old for some kids. Change freaks us all out. By telling your kids exactly what to expect, you'll save them from being confused and afraid. And even better than that, you will demonstrate that you can be trusted to talk about personal and embracing stuff. Yeah, don't be ashamed with your child, your kids. And this optimizes the change that they will come to you when they need your help. Okay, the tip is, I want to share the tip about this. If you bring it up a little bit casually, what distraction, it won't be as uncomfortable. Be careful. Second, discuss what sexual desire is and how to best manage it. By letting your kids know that sexual feelings are normal, you reduce the chance that they'll feel shame or impulsively act out. Even young children are titillated by romance and sex. And the tip is, if you discuss it openly, then you can more fairly hold them accountable for their choices and behavior. And third, teach them how babies are made and about sexually transmitted diseases and birth control. Center for Disease Control statistics reveal that 47% of high schoolers have had sexual intercourse, and I suspect their parents were the last to know. No matter what you think about premarital sex, your kids must have information in order to make informed and assertive choices. That means you must provide education about what sex is, how to prevent sexually transmitted diseases and pregnancy, and what you think about teens having sex. Saying just don't is not enough. If you train your children to be blindly obedient to you, they may be blindly obedient to an exploitive peer or an internet predator. The tip is for this, yeah, teaching sex is also teaching family values, so be careful too. And fourth, inform them that other kids and adults may try to take advantage of them sexually, and teach them how to assert themselves as soon as they feel the ick factor. It's not acceptable to scare your kids with dangerous stories. However, it's critical that you teach them caution. Surveys they Surveys estimate that up to 30% of 6 years old have received a sexting request. Based on my mothering and clinical experience, oh no, based on the based on mothering and clinical experience on my mothering, I'm not mother. I'm sorry. I believe these numbers are actually higher. Screen Media has opened an informational portal to your children that is barely regulated. Even with the best filtering and monitoring strategies in place, your kids will eventually be approached by someone looking to take advantage of them. The tip is for you is rather than discover that your child has participated in a sexual online activity and then reacting, be preventative by teaching assertiveness skills. That means boys and girls must be taught to attend to their feelings and respond with confidence. And one, two, three, four, a fifth. Teach how intimacy differs from sex. If you've been lucky enough to experience loving intimacy, then you know how important it is that your children won't have sex until they are mature enough for true intimacy. If you don't cover this topic, you run the risk that they will covertly watch online pornography and conclude, aha, that's sex. And the tip is loving oneself and knowing how to build friendship must come before sexual experimentation with another person. Which brings, yeah, no, sorry, I'm sorry. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Talk about masturbation as a healthy but private activity. Oh no. Yes. Yeah. I know this is controversial, but hang in and consider my reasoning here before you decide what you will do with your kids. By the principles of behavioral conditioning, children will become attached to whatever or whomever brings them pleasure. I once had, yeah, okay, let's go from that. Okay, let's talk about the sexual behavior. During the early years of life, children often learn bits and pieces of information about sexuality by observing adults, television, movies, magazines, books, and early sex education programs. Children are often more attentive to sex information and learn more from observation than adults realize. The belief that observant children are not learning much about sex results from the fact that most children rarely talk about or act out the sexual behaviors they have observed. Why? Many children are punished if they act on their sexual observations, and this inhibits such behavior. In addition, children do not derive as much pleasure or sexual reinforcement as do teens and adults when they do act out sexual behaviors that they learn by observation, because the pleasures of sexual stimulation are less intense before puberty than after puberty. This in turn helps to explain why prepubertal children cannot understand why teens and adults find sex so fascinating. Of course, some prepubertal children learn very little about sex because their parents prevent them from seeing sexual materials. Parents are often quiet when their children are observing sexual information, as if they are hoping that their children are oblivious to sexual implications of media images and innuendos. Nevertheless, there are so many modern television There are so many modern television shows and websites that show blatantly sexual images that some modern parents are becoming aware of the importance of taking with their children about the information presented on television and through other sources. Yeah, we talked about it before. The parents should be sure to cover with their kids, talk to their kids. Yeah, and concerned parents often explain how they perceive the media messages so that their children will learn how to evaluate media images and dialogues. Yeah, we talked about it before, so like I think that, yeah, I'll talk about this topic, but the topic that I talk to you all first, it's about like why should parents talk about sexual education to children? It's like this is like a different POV. Like, okay, let's continue. Wait. So before that, like I talked before, that's the right one. So like the children uh, must the children must take the sex education from their parents. So, yeah, that is. Such intervention helps children to learn how their parents process information from mass media while also passing on the parents' values to the children. So the parents must teach the, like I told it to you all before, like parents, don't be ashamed to talk with your children, talk with talk with your kids. Don't be ashamed. That's just sexual education. That's very, very important. Okay, let's continue. Unfortunately, some children receive no parental advice about the sexual information that is easy to observe in both the electronic and print media. Images and stories of rape and random violence can leave these children adrift with few tools for evaluating media messages about sex. These children are most likely to perceive sexual assault as a natural and normal part of social life, although not all of them will act on that perception. Girls tend to receive considerably more guidance for evaluating media sex messages than do boys. Many parents and teachers know that naive girls can be seduced or forced into sexual activities that might lead to sexually transmitted infection. Like I told you before, it's STIs, unintended pregnancies, and or injuries. Thus, many parents, teachers, and media programs tend to target girls more than boys with messages about responsible sex. Perhaps society should end this double standard and teach more boys about the merits of responsible sex. This can be done in a very positive way by telling boys that they also benefit from reducing the risk of STIs, unintended pregnancies, and violence. In addition, boys could come to realize she will love me more if I am responsible, concerned, and loving. Currently, adults may be doing boys a disservice by giving boys fewer guidelines than they give girls for considerate and mature approaches to sex. Sex education, when done right, can transform people's life and society at large. Quality sex education, taught by trained educators, covers a wide range of topics, including relationships, decision making, condom negotiation, gender identity, body image, birth control, and sexually transmitted infections, or STIs. When people receive a quality sex education, they explore their values and beliefs about sex and relationships while also gaining skills to navigate relationships and manage their own sexual health. Everyone deserves quality sex education, but too few young people get it because a patchwork of its inconsistent laws and policies make access to it inequitable. The outrageous thing is sex education is incredibly popular in the United States, US. Most Americans think young people should receive quality sex education that covers a wide range of important topics, including birth control and sexual orientation. And lots of people assume schools are already providing good sex education, even when they are not. Too many people aren't getting any sex education at all, or they are getting an unhelpful shaming or abstinence and abstinence only until marriage program. We can do better. Okay. Okay, let's talk about a carefully planned sex education curriculum can help young people navigate thorny questions responsibly and with confidence. Should should schools be teaching sex education? Opponents say leave it to parents, but few mothers and fathers do a good job preparing their children for sexual challenges of adolescence, let alone for carrying ethical and fulfilling sex lives as adults. The reasons are pretty straightforward. Parents aren't trained sex educators. They often have difficulty accepting that their twins and teens are sexual beings. And those twins and teens tend to be intensely uncomfortable talking about this stuff with mom and dad. Parents do the best they can, but their kids need much more. Why? Because in addition to managing their own hormonally driven desires, young adolescents' brains are inundated with sexual stimuli from all sides. First, provocative content in movies, TV shows, and advertisements. Second, readily available internet pornography, serving as sex education for many. Third, social media rife with flirtation and sexting. Four, peers conveniently spotting misinformation. For pressure for casual sex as part of the much exaggerated hookup culture. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, six everyday sexual harassment of up to 80% of young women. And the last, sexual abuse experienced by 1 in 5 girls and 1 in 20 boys by age 18. We will guide, uh, we will guide teenagers through the sexual wilderness as a 2017 PLOS poll found that 78% of US parents across the political spectrum were fine with outsourcing sex education to schools. Cantor and Letwitz, 2017. But if educators are going to be the ones teaching sex, they need to get it right. And their track record is not encouraging. Teacher training and support are uneven. Few schools go beyond the basics, and there's timidity on various subjects young people need to think through carefully. See Ornstein 2016 through critic. Okay, what is the base age? Given the earlier onset of puberty among American youth, mostly the result of better nutrition over the last 100 years, and the startlingly young age at which kids are exposed to sexual content. Many schools now begin sex education in 5th grade. The rationale is that students need to understand what's happening to their bodies, learn the basics of sexuality and reproduction, and pick up some refusal skills in preparation for sexual shenanigans in middle school. But some parents or educators believe 5th grade is too young. In fact, every time 2 or 3 parents opted their children out, and for those who did get permission, some of the content was over their heads. So what's the best age? One solution is to pace in the curriculum for kindergarten through high school, introducing new and developmentally appropriate topics each year. This sounds logical, and some curriculum packages do a thoughtful job spreading the material across K-12. In general, though it's challenging to ensure high quality instruction at so many grade levels. And there's a strong possibility that these uncoordinated pieces will leave students unprepared to make good decisions in their 10 years, when the consequences of unwise choices become quite serious. A better approach, I would argue, is to address sexual abuse prevention in 2nd or 3rd grade, and then teach more comprehensive sex courses in 6th grade, when more students are ready for it. And the 9th grade, right in the middle of many adolescents' sexual decision making. This 1, 2, 3 punch allows school to focus training and curriculum development at 3 strategy points and carve out the time needed to do justice to subject matter. And what's the purpose and the content? Yeah, like the edition of that from that I told you before. The big ideas that shape that you should teach, like sex is normal, so sex can harm people. Many people have difficulty talking about sex. Adolescence is tricky. Early sex is risky. Values matter. Assertiveness is an important life skill. Okay, let's end this. The conclusion: young people have the right to lead healthy lives. As they develop, we want them to take more and control of their lives so that as they get older, they can make important life decisions on their own. The balance between responsibility and right is critical because it sets behavioral expectations and builds trust while providing young people with the knowledge, ability, and comfort to manage their sexual health throughout life in a thoughtful, empowered, and responsible way. But responsibility is a two-way street. Society needs to provide young people with honest, age-appropriate information they need to live healthy lives. and build healthy relationships, and young people need to take personal responsibility for their health and well-being. Advocates must also work to dismantle barriers to sexual health, including poverty and lack of access to healthcare. Okay, thank you guys. That's all from me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.